what I chose to do today is focus around client service or customer service. There are key processes within client or customer service, and those two words are interchangeable. It just depends on your industry, whether you call it a client or you call it a customer. Every industry generally does different work inside of doing the business. So these three functions tend to be relatively consistent from industry to industry. In other words, all businesses kind of have similar needs and processes. And this is why the process libraries inside of these functions tend to be the most useful, because they're the most generic. When you get here, this is when things get specialized by industry. What one type of business does here in operations or doing the business is different than what another does. The thing that is consistent, though, is client or customer service. All businesses have customers of one form or another. And the customers are kind of the heart of your business. They're the reason that you're there. The customers and satisfying those customers keeps you in business or throws you out of business. All the processes within this whole function of doing the business are to support the customers. They're there to ensure that the customers get what they paid for on time, every time, exactly as promised. These people over here are making promises to your customers. They're making important promises that these people here have to fulfill on. Everyone else over here and here is in support of these two things, getting business in the door and servicing and delivering what you've sold to the customer. So it's important that what these people are selling is exactly what these people are delivering, right? It's essential. And throughout both of these functions, it's essential that the customer's well-being and their satisfaction is paramount. It's going to drive everything else. If you sell things here, you can sell things here all day long, and if people aren't happy with what they're getting here, then the business will fail. So one element or area that ties those two things together, the selling and the delivering, is what we call client or customer service. We have a process in the library called client satisfaction. The gist of it is you want to have a way of checking in with your customers to make sure that they're getting what they were promised, that they're happy with what they got. Whether it's a one-time transaction or a long-term engagement, client satisfaction is paramount. It influences everything. If you learn something that a client has experienced that wasn't good, you should then go back to your processes and figure out what caused that to happen. If you have a customer calling who's upset and angry about something, or just kind of generally not satisfied with what they bought, usually what businesses do is they go yell at a person. You salespeople, you oversold it. You delivery people, you didn't get it on time. You manufacturing people, you broke it before you sent it. No one called them back, so you're yelling at the person. That's bad management, in my opinion. You don't want to yell at the person. You want to figure out what caused that problem to happen and then improve your process. Make it better, make it better, make it better. Go to those people and say, this is what happened. It's nobody's fault. Let's figure out how to make it better. Maybe we need to be retrained. Maybe we need to fix this hole. What generally also happens in business is nobody has time to do that. So you're just letting these problems float in and float out, and you don't care because you're so busy focused on the next customer that what happened to the last customer, you don't have time to deal with that. So what we're saying in this process is have a method that you figure out how customers are feeling about what you're doing. There's some statistics here. There's quite a few here. This is in the library process, so you can look at these in your own time. Basically, they're just statistics to kind of encourage you to do something about customer service. Price is not the main reason for customer churn. It's actually due to overall poor quality of service. What that means is price doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the quality of what you're delivering. A customer is 4 times more likely to defect to a competitor if the problem is service-related rather than price. What this is saying is don't focus. What this is really saying to me is you can charge more if you have better service. And I think that's true. Unless you're dealing with extremely busted value buyers who are always going to go to Walmart, then maybe not. But for the most part, it's not true. If you add a little more service, you can justify your higher price. The probability of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%. The probability of selling to a new prospect is 5 to 20%. People who are happy with their experience with you are going to buy more, and they're going to buy more often. For every customer complaint, there are 26 other unhappy customers who remained silent. We all know this is true. We do this in our everyday lives. Like you know, your biggest recourse is, I'm just not going to go back there. A lot of people don't have the energy to complain or say why, or they're not going to do that unless they're really pissed off, and then they're going to go on the internet and just bash you, or they're going to come in and make a scene. But most of those people just don't come back. 2% increase in customer retention is the same as decreasing costs by 10%. If you can retain 2% more, you've just decreased your costs by 10%. See, these are the things that aren't considered when we all get so busy and we're just going, doing what is in front of us. Think about that. 2% increase in customer retention, just 2%, has the same effect of decreasing overall cost by 10%. So this goes on and on. There's a few more here that you can read, but if this hasn't grabbed you by now, then I'll be surprised. So this is the case for customer service. So I think the first thing every business needs is something like this. And there's an example of this in the library. These are called customer service standards. These are examples. So get on the same page with everyone in your company. Make a list of the top 5 things that are just your rules for customer service, things you believe in, things that you're committed to. Think about the things that go wrong, and then make statements like this. This may be too many, but it's an example for you to kind of pull from. So we greet our customers with in a courteous and professional manner. We listen to every request and promptly take action on it. We have a system in place to do that. We inform our customers of the normal process time and also inform them if there are exceptions or delays. We don't wait for them to call us to say, hey, where's my stuff? We call them and say, for this reason, it's going to be this date. So think about your version of this and come up with your rules for customer service. Employees like this because then, it gives them meaning. It gives them, what is their mission in terms of the customers? So develop something like this. Then consider what process are you going to put in place to check in with your customers and see how they felt about the service. We all get customer surveys in the mail over the internet. This is a process for doing customer surveys. Here's a script around it. Here's a client survey example right here. You've probably all heard of SurveyMonkey. You can do those. What I think is really nice is when somebody takes the time to make a phone call. Say, hey, we just finished a project with you. How did it go from start to finish? How did you feel about it? And ask them. Talk to them about it. How did it go? They may or may not fill out a survey from you that you just casually email them to them. But if you call, and depending on your type of business, you don't have to call every customer. Just make a concerted effort to call. Because if you think that it's worth the time, you think back to that statistic about how 2% more retention is going to equal 10% less expenses, that it's 75% easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to get a new one, that's costing you money. This is nothing. This is just a no-brainer. And in addition, if they make the phone call, they can ask for a referral. If the person says, yes, your service was awesome, you're great, I love your people, John was great, then say, I'm so glad you're happy. can you recommend a friend? Who would you recommend? You can ask for a referral, which is fabulous, because then if you get a referral, that increases your conversion rate when someone tells someone. So think about developing a process like this. If surveys is the only way you can do it, then fine. Here's a survey process, and here's even examples. But think about a phone call. Think about what that would mean to the customer. There's another process called customer complaints or client complaints. This is in the library as well. If this is going, so well, your customer satisfaction, it's probably because you've got a good complaint resolution process. If you call a customer and they had an issue, this complaint, how to deal with the complaints, is going to make it, resolved and happen effectively for the client. So think about a process like this. This is just a sample work plan, a step-by-step, what they do. There's a form here to use. Basically, this is a way of documenting what the issue was and providing a solution to it. Empowering your employees to recognize when a customer isn't happy and do everything they can to make sure that customer is happy. Even if it's refunding them money to a certain degree, doing extra work to make them happy. Because remember, the 2% increase in customer satisfaction or retention increases your bottom line by 10%. Think about that when you're saying to yourself, we don't have enough money to make people happy. You do. So customer complaint process. I also threw this one in here, client intake, because a lot of issues for certain businesses go wrong here. If you can have a smooth intake from sales to operations, then that increases your client satisfaction. So I just want to say one more thing about client satisfaction, and it has to do with managing processes and having effective managers in place in your business, having managers who care. If your employees don't like you and they don't like their manager, they're not going to be nice to your customers. So think about that and let it sink in. Process documentation is about creating consistency, creating fairness, creating training, creating opportunity, creating efficiency and effectiveness of managers in a way that isn't personal, it isn't blaming, it isn't a rant. It's about how can we improve this overall so that we're all successful. So require your managers to work with their processes and learn them. Because if your employees don't like their manager, they don't like you, they're not going to be nice to your customers.